Hello, how are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you?
What are your good names?
Harrison Griffiths.
Harrison?
Yes, Harrison. It's my first name. A lot of people say, "Isn't that your surname?"
Yeah, it sounds like a surname. But anyway, I'm glad to meet you today. And I was listening to you when you were at the panels at the Uhuru conference when you were doing your panelist talk, and you were speaking about human rights in terms of land, but also you spoke in connection of women as well. So how do you see that idea, the entire idea of land rights in Tanzania, but especially to women, but also why this topic for today's conference?
Yeah, so it's a cause that I care an awful lot about because, to me, the liberalism that I hold very deep in my heart, the belief in individual liberty, is one that's rooted in equality and universalism. I believe whether you're a man, a woman, you're black, white, you're from Britain, you're from Tanzania, it doesn't matter. You are entitled to the same rights to life, liberty, and property as everybody else. And so, throughout world history, well, pretty much everywhere, customary law has always disfavoured women and treated women as second-class citizens. Thankfully, the world has made a lot of progress in that regard, but there are still some parts of the world, most of which, unfortunately, in Africa and in the Middle East, where that progress hasn't gone as far as it possibly can. In Tanzania, there's been a lot of progress made, as I understand, with creating a much more sort of progressive, liberal framework for equality for women. But as I understand, in some rural areas, there's still a big way to go. And in this particular case, we're talking about how women can inherit land from, if their husbands pass away or from their fathers. It's about treating women with the inherent value they deserve, rather than considering them to have value just by virtue of their closest male relative.
Wow, yo, have you ever thought about inheritance of land as a woman? Because I like the way he pointed it out, saying that despite that there are changes going about laws and the society at large, there are rural areas where the land is still limited, especially to women. Men are supposed to hold it, but women are not. And once your husband passes, you're like left with nothing because you're supposed to be married off to the brother, to another relative of your husband, which is depriving of your human rights. And I like the way you pointed out in terms of saying that you believe in liberty, you believe in property ownership, you believe there are rights that have to be, they're internationally recognized. So it doesn't matter you're from an urban area, rural area, in Africa, in Europe, wherever you are, there are some rights have to be administered, and you have them. You're supposed to have them. So you were saying you were sharing that, and the reason I asked you why did you share that specifically in this conference, because today is about creative innovation, and all change makers. So I wanted to understand the main reason that drove you there. Why was specifically you were like, I'm just going to share about land rights today. Yes, and it's still the youth who basically we know many of us we delay getting land, owning land, but we do know people who own land. We have siblings who own land, and some of them are male, some of them are female. So we do have siblings. Yes. So I just need to understand why. What drove you? What was specific interest?
So there is a big question for me about people's, fundamental inalienable rights as individuals. That's one very important question. But the reason that it really matters, I think, in terms of the wider economy in Tanzania, across Africa, across the world, is because often when women are dispossessed of land that they work on, so for example in Tanzania 70 to 80 somewhere percent of farm work and soil work is done by women. So they're already working the land, and then all of a sudden, through some sad circumstance, it's not theirs anymore and it goes to somebody else. Now, it's often true, it's not always true, but it's often true that people who work the land know best what to do with the land. And so if you have, you basically create an economic distortion by taking it away from the people who own it and just giving it to somebody else. Now, if the women wants to take the land and sell the land to somebody else, hey, that's fine, it's yours. But you're creating an economic distortion by taking it away from them, and particularly when we're talking about the African continental free trade area, there's been a lot of work done in Burundi, where I was last week, to basically extend equal rights, including the rights to land ownership to women in rural areas in Burundi. and a lot of work done to educate them about their rights so that they know. And this has had a particularly profound impact in the border areas of Burundi with Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, where a lot of cross-border trade takes place. Because, you know, free trade isn't just about getting rid of tariffs. That's an important part of what we do, but it's also about getting rid of non-tariff barriers to trade. And one such non-tariff barrier to trade is people not being able to live under a secure rule of law which protects their rights to life, liberty and property. If you don't have that, you don't have a market. It's just as bad as the government coming in and imposing tariffs on everything. You need the rule of law as well.
Wow, thank you so much. Well answered, Harrison. That's amazing. I love your response. Response yake anakwambia jamani, agriculture. You know, many women, you know, especially in rural areas, tunategemea ardhi yetu. Tunajihusisha na kilimo. Sasa unaposema mume wangu kafariki, unachukua ardhi yangu, mimi nitabaki na nini? Uchumi wangu utazorota, nitaanza kuhangaika huku na kule na vitu kama hivyo. So I am so delighted that Harrison made the point clear that basically his interest of sharing this is because there are young people here, so it's empowering them to understand that it's really, really important to have your rights of life, liberty, but also property, not only as a man, but as a woman. So thank you so much, Harrison.